what we would do, um, we'd have briefings on what the mission was. Just a bunch of marks on the blackboard, which way we'd be going, and grid coordinates, which meant nothing to me, you know, and what we'd be looking for. That made some sense to me. But once we were actually in the jungle, nobody knew where they were. The team leader was the only one that really knew where they were. Maybe the assistant team leader to some extent. But yeah, we were at Kuchi. We'd get the mission assignment, and the team would suit up. I would carry about 6 grenades. I loved grenades. I looked like grenades. A lot of ammunition, my M16, grenades, and a Claymore mine. Had to have a Claymore mine. There's 700 double odd BBs on a giant slab of C4 explosive, which is electronically detonated by a little squeeze thing in your hand. And you get those 700 BBs flying at about 2,800 feet a second, I think. So, yeah, a Claymore, 6 grenades, at least 8 magazines of ammunition, lots of water. I used to cross my fingers and not carry too much water because it's heavy. And we'd carry iodine pills, get fill up the canteens from bomb craters or
Yeah,
rivers or things like that. But
right.
if it was that kind of water, you had to make sure that iodine pill was in there long enough. Guys got sick and they never did recover. Some guys died from drinking polluted water. And a lot of times the water in the bomb craters was blue. And I couldn't help but wonder, being a chemistry fanatic, when I was a kid, that was my hobby, chemistry. And I wondered what made that water blue. And obviously the answer is TNT made that water blue.
So
And so we, as quietly as possible, for 5, 6 days, carrying the food. You got to sort out what food you took on the mission. And the object was not to make contact. The object was to find the enemy and report his position.
so
And
it sounds like it's the LURPS. I mean, it sounds like the same
well,
basic mission
exactly,
as the LURPS.
that's exactly what we were. The LURPS, by 1969, everybody was paying attention. The LURPS had a body count ratio of 50 to 1. They were just, and everybody was noticing, the generals, everybody was noticing, and they decided that these LURPS, we're going to call them Rangers, and not only are we going to call them Rangers, we're going to get stateside school Rangers to take over the LURPS. By the time I was in country, 50% of F Company Rangers was schooled Rangers. They had actual Ranger tabs, and the other 50% were volunteers. But originally, they were just strictly LURPS until they got incorporated as Rangers. And to this day, LURPS resent that, and they feel that they were doing just fine without Rangers taking them over. Personally, I think that the Rangers were a good addition because Ranger School teaches you skills. Ranger School gives you muscles you didn't have before. The LURPS before that operated strictly on balls and bravery.
Mm.
And some teams were never heard from again.
So you did this duty for 6 months, and the mission, the goal is to avoid contact. You're gathering information that you can then report to the forces that will go after the VC or the NBA.
Most of the time, we did go on a few ambush missions, which I didn't like. I did not like them um, because if a 6-man element attempts to ambush a 15-man element, I mean that's trouble. I don't care how brave you are. I don't care how many Claymore mines you have pre-positioned. That's bad news. I did not like ambush positions. We were very good at walking quietly and observing.
So that's what I wanted to ask you. So you're out, a typical mission then would be maybe a 5-day mission.
Yeah,
So you have helos insert you, And if I remember right, the procedure often is for the helo to go down to the ground, to come up again, to go down somewhere else, come up again, go down
Right.
somewhere else. So
Yeah,
that
we make not always, but at least half the time we made false landings.
so the VC or the NBA don't know where you are. So you're out
Right.
there for 5 days. So what are you doing through that 5 days? Is it, just maybe walking a click or two and then just being still for 4 hours and then getting up and walking another click or two and being still for 4 hours? I mean, what are you doing over that 5 day period?
Just walking, just walking a pre-designated route. Um, and you just stop and listen. A lot of times we'd send out a two-man element off to the side. The four guys would stay where we stopped, and two guys would go out and come back, which was stupid. Half the time we got lost doing that. To this day, if I go into Green Swamp down here in Florida, I can walk off the main road into the forest. I walk back out and I get tripped up by some vines. So I come out somewhere else and the road's not where I thought it was. It was the stupidest thing we ever did. To me, it happened twice. Two times it happened where two of us went out, couldn't find the team to come back, and actually fired a shot into the dirt as a signal. And then we got a return shot. That completely gives your position away.
Right.
And I reiterate, I want to emphasize, it was the stupidest tactic I ever saw in Vietnam.
To
Go
send
ahead.
two guys out from the
Yeah.
Rangers because they get lost.
Too often they couldn't come back and you know, find the main element. And then
Right.
nobody's going to say, hello, we're here. They're not going to do
Right. Right. When you're walking on these missions, is this just incredibly slow walking first? I mean, because you're looking out for traps, I imagine, but also just not to make any noise, don't break any twigs. I mean, is
No,
this
main,
incredibly slow walking you're doing?
the main goal of the walking is to do it quietly. You never run, and you don't walk too slowly because then you won't accomplish the mission. The pace is that pace which can be reasonable but most quiet.
And presumably you're not talking to each other at all. I mean, just whispering.
What you can whisper, you can whisper.
Yeah.
I'll give you an idea of how quiet we were. Because we'd walk, I don't know, 300, 500 meters and stop and listen. And one time we'd walk and he gave us a signal we're going to stop. And we sat down and we were sitting there. I had a lizard 3 feet long walk up within a foot of my left knee, started digging furiously. He apparently smelled or had previously buried what to me it looked like feces, a ball of mud or something. But I think it was feces. Anyway, he pried it open with his claws and started eating the maggots or bugs that were inside of it. This is all happening 1 foot from my knee because that's how quietly we walked.
This is a 3 foot lizard right there.
I could see his teeth. I could see his tongue darting in and out. Is 1 foot from my knee.
In those 6 months, did your team set eyes on VC or NBA that you then reported back?
Yes, one time was memorable, particularly memorable. It was nighttime, and we were in a former NVA position. There are trenches, perfectly dug trenches, not haphazard. They're perfect rectangles with right angles in the corners. It was really quite something to see. But the perfectly dug enemy trenches, and that's where we decided to spend the night because if we did make contact, we could jump into them. And so we're there that night, and I don't remember who it was that saw it first. It might have been me, but there, 50 to 100 yards from us, a light starts sweeping. We're on the edge of, I don't know if I mentioned that we're on the edge of a clearing.
Hmm.
All these fighting positions are on the edge of this clearing. So we're basically in a wood line, no more than 10 feet in the wood line, in trenches, and I'm looking out over the clearing. I'm awake, and we start seeing the light. I don't know if anybody else was awake or not. Probably not, because there's only one man awake at a time. Yeah, it was me. Anyway, I see a light start sweeping the clearing in front of us, you know, just back and forth. Anyway, I wake up all the guys. One of our guys, upon realizing the light was there, curled up in a ball and started saying, "Mama, mama, mama." This was a guy that had threatened me once in the past, a big Southern boy, big corn-fed Southern boy. And I just went up to him and I hissed at him. I whispered very loudly. I said, "You just shut the hell up or I'll kill you myself." But anyway, so that light just swept the landing zone, like the clearing. And Tom, our team leader, our team leader called in. He called in illumination, which was a very surprising to this day. Why did he call in illumination? I don't need illumination. I know there's somebody there. What he should have called in is high explosive. But anyway, he called in illumination, and that light went out. And we sat there for the rest of the night. And then the next day, we walked to a rendezvous point or LC or somewhere, but we got out of there. And obviously, the infantry was sent in to find those guys. But that illumination could have gotten us killed, I think.
Well, I'm assuming when the illumination came in, I mean the whoever it was, the VC or the NVA, they took off, right? They knew they'd been spotted.
Absolutely. They know they've been spotted. Yeah.
Did you ask the officer, who called that in, what was up with that? Why not call in explosives rather than
He
illumination?
wasn't, he wasn't an officer. He was a sergeant, a buck sergeant. He was our team leader. There's six of us. And he
Huh,
called it illumination. I don't know. But then again, like I said, in the heat of the moment, strange things happen. And
sure.
that's what his call was. It
Yeah.
wouldn't have been my call. I'd have called in every 105 from everywhere.